Yeah, and so John, you coming out of high school, football, baseball, basketball, track. I mean, you just didn't play football, right? And at what 6'6", 305 is what you played at, right? So I mean that stature, to be able to do all those things is incredible. Now you hear Harbaugh talk about all the time, a multi-sport athlete. How much does that mean to you being a multi-sport athlete?
Oh, I think it's critical. I think that there are things that you learn as a basketball player that you only learn as a basketball player. And there are things you learn in each sport that are unique and specific to that sport. Now, if you take an athlete that has learned all those different things in terms of how they move and how they train and how they prepare for games, all of a sudden now you get an athlete that's a little bit different than some athletes that are just one sport players. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a one sport player. I'm just a proponent of, hey, these kids are just that, they're kids, and sports are supposed to be fun. And I had the best times of my life were when I was playing basketball, baseball, football, track. It was because I was with my buddies. I was having a good time doing what I love to do. And if there's a coach that says, I only want you to focus on one sport and you only play for that one season, you're missing out on so much fun. And the lessons that you learn, not just about how your body moves or about training, but competition. You put yourself in a competitive environment as much as possible, then you learn how to win. You learn how to win. You learn how to handle losses. You learn how to recover. You learn how to come back when you've been down. All of those things that you learn during games and in training for different sports can translate into when you do pick a sport and you go play at college. Those are lessons that are invaluable.
It was one of those things where I had this quote that was given to me as a college kid, and it made sense to me and certainly changed my life, but I got to see it practically from Peyton. So it was my freshman year of college. I was a bad student. My coach called me into his office and said, you'll never play for me again, GPA. And as I was leaving, he hit me with, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that certainly stopped me in my tracks and made a lot of sense to me.
I like that. That's
and
good. Yeah.
My 5th year in the NFL or so was when I was in Indy, 6th year in the NFL. And Peyton had his neck thing, and we were out for a walkthrough. And walkthroughs were walkthroughs, like, hey, get in, trippy right, and we're going to run, 55 left, can it with something. And I'd get to the line of scrimmage in the walkthrough, and I'd be like, very nonchalant. Walkthroughs were very nonchalant. And I remember Peyton being out there, and within 3 plays, not flipping out, but certainly being very firm and not allowing walkthrough to be a walkthrough mentally. And so he was like, no, guys, that's not how we do it here. And I was like, it's a walkthrough, bro. Like, what do you mean? And so he kind of took over, got guys in the huddle. And right when he walked into the huddle, he was in New England for the AFC title game. I mean, he was screaming loud. He starts to sweat. He breaks the huddle, has a little bit of tempo going to the line of scrimmage. He's barking out his cadence literally like he's on the road in New England and pointing out hots and this and that. And then the ball gets snapped and he shuts it down and he goes through walkthrough mode. And he was like, you have to treat every single play like you're in the game. And so you're getting those, literally he started sweating in one play from just the emotional energy he was bringing. And that was like one of those moments I was like, dang, this dude, when it comes to this, it's gassed down all the time with Peyton. And that's what afforded him to be great, and now certainly his brain was light years away from most people and certainly mine. But I think that little snippet of watching him operate in a walkthrough setting with such a dominant presence before the ball was snapped was really impactful to me.
What was the biggest thing mentally to adapt to when you got to the NFL?
Yeah, I think the one thing that stood out for me and still does is you go from being I was 21 my senior, so I was 20 at the start of my senior year and 21 during the season. You go from that season, and I was still very much so I was there to play football kid. So Like I'd wake up, I'd go to breakfast, I'd sleep on a futon, I'd wake up, I'd go to breakfast, I'd figure out what classes I had the day and get them done. And then I'd go do football for the great majority of the day, and then I'd go home and play video games. And that's not the case in the NFL. Like you go from 0 to 100 when it comes to being an adult real fast. And you get given this money and you're forced to move to this foreign city and going, okay, figure it out, And I was fortunate that I had a decent head on my shoulders, but it's still an incredible challenge to be that young and in that situation and just expected to go and be the 30-year-old veteran that so many guys in the NFL are. So that's the biggest challenge. That was one of the biggest challenges for me to adapt to. And then it's your job. It's not, you're not on scholarship anymore, and so if you were dedicating, if you were awake for 12 or 14 hours a day as a college kid and you dedicated 50% of that time to football, it's 100% of the time in the NFL. It's your job. And that's a really difficult thing, at least it was for me. I think a lot of young kids to get their heads wrapped around is like, it is your job. It's not a childhood dream anymore. You're getting paid. I tell people you're a stock. And if you can make the owner money, he'll keep you. And if you can't, he will get rid of you. And once you, in your mind, can wrap your head around that, the better suited you're going to be.
What's the main difference between college and the NFL for you personally? Maybe when you got out of Houston, went to the NFL, was it the speed of the game? Was it the scheme that you had to learn? Mentally, what was the most difficult thing for you to transition from college to high school? From college to NFL.
Honestly, the NFL is a business. In college, you know what I'm saying, you was out there, you was having fun. In the NFL, it's all about what have you done for me lately. If you're not being productive, guess what? They're going to replace you. So it's a business aspect, and it's also mental also. It's a lot of mental as being in the National Football League. It's mental, and like I said, it's a business, and you have to run it like that.
Now, when you say mental, is it more of like learning plays mental, or like just being able to get over the fact that you might, lose your job, have a job one week and then lose it the next week, and then got to find work after that? Is it that more mental?
Yeah, it mental because okay, when you're in college, okay, you go into class, you might practice 2 hours, and you might go watch film. But in the National Football League, you waking up, you getting to work at 7:30, and when you leaving there, it's 5 o'clock, 4:30. So it's a long day. So you have to be mentally prepared for that because you're not used to it. And those that can't handle it find themselves falling behind. So you have to be in tune to what you're doing. So that's what I say. And if you're someone that's always being late to practice, being late to meet, that could cost you your job. Mm-hmm. So that's what I say when I say it's ran like a business.